Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I have with me Dr. Debi Silber, and let me tell you about Dr. Debi. She is the founder of the PBT, which is Post Betrayal Transformation Institute, and is a holistic psychologist, a health, mindset, and personal development expert, the author of Trust Again, and is a two-time #1 international best-selling author of The Unshakable Woman and From Hardened to Healed. Her podcast, From Betrayal to Breakthrough, is also globally ranked within the top 1.5% of podcasts. Her recent PhD study on how we experience betrayal made 3 groundbreaking discoveries that change how long it takes to heal. In addition to being on Fox, CBS, The Dr. Oz Show, TEDx twice, and more, she is an award-winning speaker and coach dedicated to helping people move past their betrayals as well as any other blocks preventing them from the health, work, relationships, confidence, and happiness they want most. Today, we're going to talk about a subject that sometimes I do cover with my guests, and that is why we sabotage ourselves and how to stop. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Dr. Debi Silber. Hi, Dr. Debi.
Hi, nice to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I think it's an important one. And before we get into all of the meat of this, as I say, I always like you to share where you call home and where do you live now?
I'm actually bi-coastal between New York and California. So every 2 or so weeks, I'm on a plane to one or the other.
Oh my goodness. That's can be tiring.
You get a lot done on the plane. I think that's why I've written a bunch of books.
Yeah, I know. You're not one of those people that sleeps on the plane. I always try to use the time on the plane because I used to go from Atlanta to California every 2 weeks myself. So before we get into all of the questions, I do like to have you talk just a brief bit about your journey that took you to where you are today. Just explain, what led you to this doctorate and all the things that you're doing. So please share.
Yeah, sure. So, I've been in business over 32 years. I don't think anybody says, I think I want to study betrayal. No, you study
No.
it because you have to. I was in health, mindset, personal development. And then I had a really painful betrayal from my family. Thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. And then it happened again a few years later. This time it was my husband. Anybody who's been through that, you're shocked, you're blindsided, you're devastated. Life will never be the same. And I looked at the two experiences thinking, well, what's similar to these two? Of course, me, but what else? And I realized boundaries were always getting crossed. I never took my own needs seriously. And I'm one of those people that believes if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I got him out of the house and I actually enrolled in a PhD program because there was nothing I could find. Usually I go to books or courses to help me through thing. And there was nothing I can find to help me through this. So I enrolled in a PhD program. I had 4 kids, 6 dogs, a business, and here I am now taking on a PhD. And it was in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential, because I was changing so much. I didn't quite understand it. He was too, wasn't ready to look at that. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. And honestly, I studied it just to help myself. That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life.
Awesome.
And happy to get into the discoveries. And that led to everything I'm doing now.
Awesome. And I just have to applaud you, because some people would just have shrunk and wallowed and just gave up, and you did not. I love that.
I didn't have the luxury of that. I had
Yeah.
kids, I had clients, I had all these animals, and it wasn't an option. And I didn't just want to be the poster child for betrayal. And I remember a moment going through the study saying, I have no idea how I'm going to heal from this, but if I do, I'm taking everybody with me. It was just a knowing, because I'm such a highly sensitive empath, and integrity is my highest value. So it wasn't even enough to heal myself, heal my family. It's like it had to be used for something so much bigger.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about betrayal. People that are listening probably have a family member that has betrayed them, a husband, a wife, whomever. You may be the one that has been the betrayer. So why does it hurt, and who does it impact, and what does it create in our lives?
Right. Well, when you think about it, this was the person, or these were the people who gave you a sense of safety and security.
Yes, trust.
So when this is the person, and these, or these are the people who shatter that very sense of safety and security, it's traumatizing. These are the people we run to when other people are causing harm, and these are the ones causing the harm. So it is completely destabilizing.
I work with the youth as well, to just on their public speaking, being able to be confident. And what I see time and time again with a lot of the kids at risk that I work with is that their trust is non-existent, and it comes from being betrayed by those that were their caregivers, their parents, the ones that should be showering on them all of this security and love. Those are the ones that are sometimes unknowingly, I guess, doing the most harm.
And what's so sad is, until and unless that child intentionally and deliberately heals that original shattering of trust, it will follow them around in every relationship they have, in everything they do. And what happens is they move into relationships not because they're good, because they're so familiar. They know how that works. And because of the shattering of the self, and that was actually the first discovery, which we can get to. But what happens is they lose their confidence, sense of belonging, sense of safety, all of it. So you can only imagine someone who has the complete and total destruction of the self, how it would impact who their friends are, what they do, how they feel, what they think, how they behave. It affects everything.
Did you find in your studies that it was generational, that it just happened, their mothers and fathers and everything, just the environment that they were in just came on, and unless you did something like you did to take yourself out of that, it just would continue on with their kids?
Yeah. Most people just, it's just this sort of, well, this is what I know. And we sort of remember and regurgitate the same thing. It takes, when I say deliberate and intentional, I'm not kidding, deliberate and intentional awareness of exactly the thoughts and feelings and behaviors you have because of what happened, rewiring all of that. And that's when you actually become someone that you wouldn't have had access to had the trauma not happened. That's trauma well served. But there's a saying, I've been saying it in my 32 years of business, and it applies to just about any topic. And it's this: it's hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's going to be one of those two. And most people opt for easy now. And that's why they have the hard later. And now I know people are thinking, well, but life stinks. This is hard. Yes, but it's the lack of change in beliefs and behaviors and thoughts and actions, that's the easy now.
Yeah.
That's why it's like that. As opposed to hard now, we're going to take on every single thought, behavior, action, habit, belief. Easy later. You get to become someone you never could have been.
And, you know, as we talk about this, and it was funny because I was thinking right away, we need to just discuss the impact of you in this transformation, in this change, that it isn't going to be easy. And how do you maintain that motivation, that trust that it will be okay later?
You know, that actually has to do with the third discovery, and it'll make so much more sense when I share them. But just to briefly
so let's move to two.
Oh, okay. Because it's got to be better. The worst of it happened already. You owe it to yourself to do something really good with something really painful. Yeah. So the first discovery, and we sort of touched on this a little bit, betrayal is a different type of trauma. Yeah. And that was what was learned. And it needs a very different way to heal. You know, when you think of other traumas, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster, right? You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss, life will never be the same. But you don't necessarily question the relationship. You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question your sanity. With betrayal, you do. So that type of healing needed its own name, which is now called Post Betrayal Transformation, PBT. It was so interesting because I had been through death of a loved one and I'd been through disease, and I was like, betrayal feels different. But I didn't want to assume it was the same for all my study participants. So I asked them, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? And unanimously, they said, oh my gosh, it's so different. And it's because of the complete and total shattering of the self, where those other traumas, you don't necessarily have that same experience. That was the first discovery.
Yeah. So then what is the second one?
The second one is that there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's now known as post-betrayal syndrome. We've had over 95,000 plus people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. A few things about that. The first thing is we've all been taught time heals all wounds, right? And I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. I feel gutted. So we know you can't count on time. You can't even count on a new relationship to heal it. It will follow you around until and unless you deliberately and intentionally heal it. And every few months I pull the stats from the quiz. I have some to share if you want to hear them.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Sure. Because it would have been an awkward moment if you said no.
Never. I love to. I'm like you. I love to discover new stuff. So.
Okay, so based on 95,000 plus people, men, women, just about every country is represented. And listen to these numbers. 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 94% deal with painful triggers. And if you've ever had a trigger, they can take you right down. The most common physical symptoms, 71% have low energy. 63% have extreme fatigue. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you're emotionally eating, using food for comfort. 45% have digestive issues, and that could be anything. Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, you name it. The most common mental symptoms, 78% are overwhelmed. 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief. 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate. You have this uncomfortable digestive issue, right? You're exhausted. You still have to raise your kids. You still have to work. That's not even emotionally. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. Real common to bounce back and forth between those two all day long. 79% are stressed, just a few more. Here's why I wrote the book, Trust Again. 84% have an inability to trust. That one just killed me. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward, and 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. One thing about those stats, you didn't hear me say one thing, 20%, 30%. These numbers are super high. They're also not necessarily due to a recent betrayal. This could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be from the boyfriend or girlfriend who broke your heart in high school. So think of this, that person, and this is to your point earlier about the children. This person may not know, care, remember, they may not even be alive. And here we are, possibly decades later with symptoms because of something left unhealed. The good news is you can heal from all of it, which was the third discovery.
Well, that kind of touches on a little bit with my mom. So at some point, you and I have to talk about that, but not right now. I want to go right to talking about the third item.
Yeah. And it's very common, by the way, that when I speak about this, all of a sudden we realize, oh my gosh, I'm living a lifetime with an unhealed betrayal. And that's the reason why I have these symptoms. Good news is you could heal from all of it. So that is the third discovery. What was discovered was that while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and most people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean those symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome that I just shared, to this completely rebuilt place called post-betrayal transformation, we're going to go through 5 proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what it takes in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. Happy to share the stages if you want to hear them.
I do want to hear them, please.
Yeah. So this is what all of our coaches are certified in. It's all we do within the PBT Institute. But I'll give you a sort of a distilled version. And I write about them in Trust Again. Stage 1, and this is before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and mental, thinking and doing. We're so good at that. And kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. Well, if we only have 2 legs on a table, it's easy for that table to topple over. Exactly. And that's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of all of the stages. And it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. Right here, we've ignited the stress response. We're now headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Our minds are in this complete state of chaos and overwhelm. We just don't understand what just happened. It makes no sense. And our worldview has just been shattered. Our worldview is our mental model, the rules that govern us, that prevent chaos. Trust this person. Don't go there. These are the rules. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule we've been holding to be real and true is no longer. The bottom has bottomed out on us, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. This is terrifying, right? But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this? Where do I go? Who can I trust? Here's the trap, though. Stage 3, by far, hands down, is the most common place we get stuck. And here's why. Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where we just came from, we think it's good. We're like, okay. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5, we park here. We plant roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And 4 things start to happen. The first thing is we start getting all these small self benefits. We get to be right. We get our story. We love our story. We get someone to blame. We get a target for our anger. We get sympathy from everyone we tell our story to. That feels good. So we plant deeper roots. Again, we're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And now because this is where we are, now the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you're not all that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. And now because these are the thoughts we're thinking, this is the energy we start putting out. Like energy attracts like energy. So now we start attracting people and circumstances and jobs and relationships to confirm, yup, this is where you belong. This is where we'll join this lame support group, and we will actually sabotage our healing because we don't want to outgrow our people. This is where we will sabotage our healing because we're afraid of outgrowing our betrayer. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go. Right here, we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. So we start emotionally eating. We start numbing, drinking, whatever. Think about it. We do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And Vicki, I can see someone 20 years later and say that emotional eating you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they look at me like I'm crazy. And they say it happened 20 years ago. Do you see? All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and just stay in that stage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why most people stay there. That's why I wrote From Hardened to Healed. It's all for stage 3. It's like the worst of it happened already. You owe it to yourself to have that transformation. Want me to go to stage 4 and 5?
I do. I do.
Okay. I can't leave anybody in stage 3. Okay. So if you're willingness is a big part of this. If you're willing to let go of the small self gains and the grieve, mourn the loss, a bunch of things you need to do, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Right there in that decision, you start turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stopped the massive damage that was being created in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved, like if you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, whatever, like all your stuff's not there. You know, it's not quite cozy yet, but you're like, okay, we got that. We can do this. We got this. Like that hopeful kind of newness.
Yeah.
But think about it. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you. You don't take the things that don't represent who you want to be in that new space. And what I found was when there's a spot where people go from stage 3 to stage 4, if your friends weren't there for you, you don't take them with you. That lame support group, you're done. The betrayer who's not changing, you're done. And people say all the time, Dr. Debi, is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come. So very common to shift friendships in this stage. Anyway, when we're settled into this stage, we're making it cozy, we're making it mentally kind of home, we move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body is healing now. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. We didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. We were surviving. Now we do. The mind is healing. We're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries based on the road we just traveled. And we have a whole new worldview based on everything we've just experienced. And the 4 legs of that table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Awesome. So, you know, one of the things that I see in my mom, who I think is stuck in stage 3, is the impact is that she has, you know, she started out where she couldn't see, she couldn't speak, as I think hiding the pain, I guess. And then it just got now 6 years later where she is in a wheelchair. She sleeps most of the day. She doesn't do all these things. And if you talk to her about trying to talk out why this is happening, she just thinks she's crazy, or she doesn't want you to think she's crazy. And so the healing is not there. And it's so heartbreaking for all of us. And everything that you're talking about, audience, everything she's talking about, I'm seeing in my mom.
And that's it. And then what happens is we wind up spending our time, our money, our focus, our everything on medicating and suppressing the symptoms. And that becomes our life. And we're not doing anything to move forward. And I'll tell you, we have so many people coming into the PBT Institute with therapy trauma too, because what's happening is if that therapist, and listen, I'm a psychologist, but I'm a coach first. If that therapist isn't highly skilled in moving someone forward, what's happening is it's actually solidifying their place in stage 3, because they're unpacking and unpacking and unpacking.
Mm-hmm.
And that person is feeling heard and validated. They're also reconfirming their trauma. They're leaving that conversation not one step closer to the next stage. Couples counseling, same thing. If the intention is just to get two people okay enough, what's happening is they're really preventing the opportunity for the complete crash and burn, which births the new. And just to give you some close the loop on my story, rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move along. And that's what I did with my family. It wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something entirely, totally, and completely new with the person who hurt you. And that's what I did with my husband not long ago, as two totally transformed people. We married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids is our bridal party. Never in a billion years would I have done that if I wasn't totally transformed, and for sure if he wasn't either. But people are so afraid of the death and destruction of the old. And so they don't have an opportunity to rebirth the new.
Yeah. We always talk about self-care and really looking in the mirror and seeing who you are, where you are, and what needs to change. And change is so scary to so many people, but you can't heal unless you do make that. And I love that you talk about you have to give yourself permission to crash and burn, which is very
it's
scary.
necessary. It's a full-on reckoning. That's the only way. And the beauty is, I use this I think I talked about this in the second TEDx, Do You Have Post Betrayal Syndrome? And I use this analogy of a house and here's the difference between resilience and transformation. Resilience is restoring, bringing back to. You need that for your everyday. So imagine an old house, and the old house needs a paint job, and you paint. That's resilience. It needs a new, boiler. You get a boiler. That's resilience. You're bringing it back. You're restoring it. Here's trauma and transformation. A tornado comes by and levels the house. A new paint job is not going to fix it. A boiler is not going to fix it, right? Now, you have every right to stand there at the lot where your house once stood and say, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And you'd be right. And you can call over everybody you know and say, look at this. Isn't this horrible? They'd all agree. And you can kick and scream and cry and mourn until your final breath. However, should you choose to rebuild the house, you don't have to. But if you choose to, why in the world would you build the same one? There's nothing there, right? Why not give it everything the old house didn't have? That's the opportunity. And that's the missed opportunity when people are stuck in stage 3.
That's a great analogy. And it is, I think even if we talk to a lot of my audience are people just like myself who retired. And now you have the opportunity. People say, well, why aren't you doing project management again? Because I had the opportunity to do something I loved. And yeah, it was scary. It was different, but it's making me so much happier. And I love being a project manager, but I love this more.
Yeah, that's the opportunity. That's it. And when the whole idea of moving through something is looking at all of that and saying, what can I extract from this? And what can I do? I can promise you my story now of opening up the PBT Institute, that was a stage 5 thing. We don't have access to thoughts like that when we're stuck in our trauma. Our certification programs, we just founded National Forgiveness Day. Yet I didn't have access to any of this when I was stuck in my trauma, helping thousands of people, all the books, the talks. It's all because of moving through the stages. And I didn't do anything anybody else couldn't do.
That's so good. I want to, for our last question before we move on, well, actually, just this is the last one, I think. And I think it's important because we talked on it all throughout here, but it's really something that I do think will keep us stuck. How do we learn to trust again?
Yeah. I look at trust like a brick wall.
Yeah.
The only way I know of a brick wall being built is brick by brick by brick. Every opportunity someone has to show that they're trustworthy, that's one brick in that brick wall. So it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And now imagine the person who built the brick wall comes on over and shatters the whole thing. Well, the way it works now is the person whose trust has been shattered, if they want to, they don't have to. They could look at the rubble of bricks and say, I don't have the least bit of interest in watching that thing get rebuilt. Walk away. Totally fine. However, if they're willing to watch that brick wall be rebuilt, that would be their only job. The person who shattered the brick wall has to be a really good bricklayer. And it goes up the same way it went up the first time, brick by brick by brick. Here's what I see, though. I see the person shattering the brick wall. They don't really have much of an interest in rebuilding it. So the person who's been betrayed and whose trust has been shattered is like, fine, I'll rebuild it. No, no. That's why they never feel safe. That's why they're always hyper vigilant. That's why it doesn't change. No, it's not their job.
So good. Well, we could spend a lot more time on this. It's wonderful. I hope you audience out there will go to her website, and we're going to share that information now. And definitely check out those TEDx episodes. I'll make sure that I put those as a link in our show notes. It's, I think, something that if you are out there and you have been resonating with anything that's discussed, you owe it to yourself to investigate and find out more. All right, so it's time now for me to share my screen. If you are listening and you have not been taking notes, I always say shame on you. Go grab a paper, pencil right quick so you can get this information. It will be on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. Please subscribe, as well as the findyourleadershipconfidence.com. So the website is the PBTinstitute.com. Again, the PBTinstitute.com. For Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter, and YouTube, all of the social media she's on. You're going to first for Facebook, go to Inspire, Empower, Transform. But everything else, you can just find her by looking up Debi Silber. That's DebiSilber. That will get you right to any of those social media websites. All right, it is time now for Dr. Debi to talk to you about what her call to action is today, and also things that you might find on that website, as well as those key social media sites she likes to use the most. Dr. Debi?
I would say, yeah, the really, if you're struggling and if you find yourselves in stage 2, in stage 3, don't stay stuck. Staying stuck is now a choice. There's a proven, predictable roadmap to heal from all of it. We have our Reclaim program, which is only 3 months. You work with the best of our certified PBT coaches. I certify a lot of them. I pull the best ones into work within the PBT Institute, and they specialize in everything: divorce, reconciliation, chronic pain, self-growth, all depending on what stage you're in. You need different things. We have our courses, everything. We even have a program for the betrayer. This isn't any betrayer. This is a betrayer who realizes, I just shattered the heart and trust of the very person who loves me the most, who I love the most. I want to become someone I'm proud of. So it's beautiful when we see a couple come in. One partner does rebuild, one does reclaim, and they really emerge as 2 transformed people. Awesome. It's beautiful to watch. Yeah. So everything is at the PBT, as in Post Betrayal Transformation, the PBTinstitute.com.
So wonderful. I hope you all will take advantage of the quiz, as well as visiting, as I said, her websites. Dr. Debi, you are just a wonderful wealth of information. And I'm so excited that you took time to heal yourself and now are giving back to heal others, because it is, especially, I think COVID gave a lot of people time to really reflect on where they are and what kind of crap they've been living through. And this is just a wonderful avenue to heal. Just love this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.